I just want to preface this story with a little background about my friend, Hyrie. He was shunting in the yard, I believe, when I came down to Toronto, and I came down as a shunt and basically cut my truck driving teeth on shunting, which I would recommend to any new truck driver, because you learn how to operate your machinery. Any truck driver will know that you learn how to operate your machinery to the finest fraction. It will last you all your driving life, those lessons learned in the yard. And Hyrie was instrumental in being a mentor to that, along with others. But he was also very instrumental in helping Spouse get his job, because Spouse works at the same company as a forklift driver now. But when Spouse first got his landed papers and was putting his resume out for jobs, one of them was to my company. Obviously, it's a very good company to work for, and Hyrie was instrumental in putting a good word in for him, and many thanks for that. We will always be grateful to you for that as well. So I'm going to tell a little story about my first snowstorm out on the highway. Well, it's about 8 o'clock now, and I was up at the ungodly hour of about 6:30 again. But feeling back in the pink, got my coffee, second cup, and it's nice and warm. So I thought for this morning I would do a truck driving story. I'm that old fogey. I think they call us boomers now, which, yes, I am a dyed-in-the-wool boomer, born in 1955. Was a truck driver for many years for a large company. And back in the 90s, when I first moved to Toronto from Hamilton, or back to Toronto, because I grew up, in Toronto. But I got the job down in Hamilton, and long story short, eventually transferred up here. For over a year, I shunted in the yard of my company. And what happens there is you get very good at moving trailers, backing up, all of that. But you get cushioned against going out on the road, and a lot of drivers, I know a few that actually are reluctant to go out on the road because they feel much safer in the yard, which has its own dangers. But you get used to any environment. So every year my company had what we call a rebid, where the collective gets to vote on whether they should rebid. They should rebid on their job position, and that particular year, the rebid said, yes, let's vote, or let's, what basically they throw all the positions up in the air, and then it works down the collective, and you bid on whatever job you want. If you get it, fine. If you don't, you take whatever's left. Well, I had decided beforehand that, yes, I really needed to get out of the yard. Although I love shunting, I needed to get out there and challenge myself. And I really hate city driving people. I'm not a good customer service person. And so I went for a highway job. We ran Montreal at the time, Quebec City, Val d'Or, Timmins, places like that. So I put my name down for several, and I managed to get one. I got the run to Montreal, Anjou to be specific. And I was pretty excited, let me tell you. I was scared to death, and I was excited all at the same time. But I love a challenge, so you know, the time came and I got on the road, and I think this was March or early or late February. I'm very bad with timelines. And about 2 weeks after I got on the road, it snowed like a son of a bitch. And this was while we were down in the swamp. So coming out, you know, I thought, okay, this is my Waterloo. Let's go. And I, you know, made it across Montreal, because Anjou is on the eastern side of Montreal, and managed to make it across the city, and was chugging along, and it was, you know, oh God, the snow was coming down like a good thing. Had the CB radio on, listening to the chatter, and it was one of those situations, truck drivers will know, where your two lanes at that time, the four, well, I think it still is at that point, around Morrisburg, Mallorytown area, it's still 2 lanes. And those 2 lanes go down to 1, and you just follow the guy in front of you. And that's what I was doing. I was behind a Canadian Tire. And I was about maybe 30, not even, 30 feet, I want to say maybe 20 yards behind him. My headlights were on his bumper, and I could barely see his bumper that close. But we were crawling along at about 30, 40 kilometers an hour. And I'd already gotten it in my mind that it was going to take, you know, hours and hours and hours to reach Toronto. And I was good with it. I had, you know, I had goodies. I was warm. And over the CB radio, I heard someone say, "Oh my God, who are those idiots on the verge?" And, you know, who? And, oh, 2 bobbies and a Purelator. And I thought, a Purelator? So by and by, these guys whipped by me. They were going about 80 kilometers. And the Purelator turned out to be my friend, Hyrie. And he sees me and he goes, "Who's that in the Purelator?" And I said, "It's me, Hyrie. It's Kim." Kim is my middle name, and my friends know me by Kim. And he goes, "Oh, fall in behind me, Kimber. We'll make it together. You know, we'll make it to TO together." And I went, "It's okay, Hyrie. I'll just follow this guy." I was white knuckling it along as it was, you know. And I'd only been 2 weeks on the highway when this storm hit. And he laughed and laughed. And he's never let me forget it. And I never have forgotten it, because in later times, in snowstorms, in similar situations, I was the one going up. I ended up being the one going up the verge, because you get to know what your truck does. You get to, your vehicle becomes an extension of you, and you know exactly what it can do. Some people overpress that, of course, and end up, you know, in the rhubarb. But, you know, for the most part, I would go out every night, pretty well, even dry nights, thinking this is the night I could end up in the ditch. And, but the thrill of driving a truck in a snowstorm, even white knuckling it, is beyond description. So thank you, Hyrie. Thank you for that experience and many others. I love you still. You're always in my thoughts.